I'm life and confidence coach Dianna Leeder, and this is my podcast, the Crave More Life Roadshow. It's here we talk about emotional hits and lovingly kicking our own asses to get through them. Just so you know, it always comes down to being your beautiful, sassy self, living and loving from you, no matter what. So join me to hear about the healing journeys of other women, and you just might become a DIY ass kicker too. Hey, DIY ass kickers. Today I have health facilitator Elizabeth Kipp on the show. Elizabeth Kipp specializes in stress and chronic pain management, addiction recovery, ancestral clearing, and yoga. She is a yoga-informed addiction recovery coach, ancestral clearing practitioner, certified yoga teacher, and is trauma trained. Elizabeth healed from over 40 years of chronic pain, including anxiety, panic attacks, and addiction to prescribed opiate and benzodiazepine medication. She now works to help others achieve the same healing for themselves that she experienced directly from the work she teaches. She is the author of The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power, and it's available through elizabeth-kipp.com or on Amazon as a paperback or Kindle. Elizabeth offers one-on-one and group sessions in stress and chronic pain management and addiction recovery, forgiveness and ancestral clearing, trauma-informed yoga and meditation, and conscious communication. You can find Elizabeth on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Vimeo, and all those direct links will be in today's show notes. Hi, everybody. I'm Dianna Leeder, and I am the host of the Crave More Life Roadshow podcast. I'm a confidence coach and an intuitive life hack who helps women get what they want by finding their voice. I'm also the lead author of the recently released international bestseller, Find Your Voice, Save Your Life, with its second edition coming out very soon. Heads up to our Facebook Live watchers. We love to gab on this show, so please drop your questions and thoughts in the comments below, and we'll respond to them after the recording is done. This wonderful woman with me today is international best-selling author Elizabeth Kipp, and I'm very excited to talk to her. Elizabeth and I met a few weeks ago chatting about our work and how we can support our clients, and of course talked about chronic pain management, which is one of Elizabeth's specialties and is something that many of my clients suffer with. So I'm happy to have Elizabeth here with us. Welcome to the Roadshow.
Oh, thank you so much, Dan. I'm thrilled to be here with you and your audience today.
Oh, thank you. We're very, very happy to have you. So tell us a little bit about what got you into the work that you're doing, chronic pain specifically, but I'm sure that there's a connection among all of it.
Sure. I was, so the thumbnail on that is, I was suffered with chronic pain, one kind or another for 59 years. 32 of those, the last 32 of those were included addiction to prescription pain medication, which was the only thing the doctors knew to, except the last doctor I found finally, right? That's all they knew to do to really deal with my situation, until I found a doctor that really understood the nature of chronic pain, was trained in it, and knew how to heal it, because medication does not heal chronic pain, right? It just kind of like, helps you manage through life, which actually made me sicker. So I finally healed from
Elizabeth, can I interrupt for just a second? Would you mind telling us what the chronic pain was for you?
So, yes. So I had, I really didn't realize my whole life that I had this gut pain. And I didn't even find out until I was like 59 years old. That I can't digest the base protein casein in milk. And I was, required to drink milk 3 times, required to drink milk and cheese and all that. So that just created irritable bowel. I had grew up in a household of emotional and physical abuse. And then when I was 14, I fell off a horse and landed on a rock and broke my my 5th lumbar and my back, and And then when I actually got up and walked away from that accident, and we never knew that there was a serious injury because I got up and walked, and I just knew, I grew up in a household that was like no pain, no gain. So I just soldiered through it. And so 14 years later, 7 years later, we find out, oh, that was a fracture, and the bone slipped. And anyway, it's a big thing. I had surgery 14 years later to stabilize that slip because it was significant. And that's when the pain medicine started. So a lot of combination really of emotional and physical pain really just turned into a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like that you are connecting, and I know this is part of how you approach it, connecting the physical with the emotional pain. I think that if we ignore that these days, I think we're missing a big part.
I'm going to add one little piece in. I also call myself an ancestral clearing practitioner. And this is the piece of the story that hooks into that. So my mother suffered with chronic pain for my whole life, right? Certainly my whole childhood and well, pretty much my whole life. And I remember as a child wanting to somehow do something to help alleviate that pain. And what was interesting, because I do this ancestral work, she passed that pain right on to me. And the pain that her father suffered from was passed to her. So it's this whole, now you kind of understand, wow, I call myself a transitional character because I'm doing the ancestral healing work to clear that and shift shift that right out of the lineage.
Wow. And you know what? I bet when we look back, we all have similar circumstances that we know of in our history. Yeah. Wow. So this is just kind of basic questions that are coming up in my head, not very scripted, of course, but so when an ancestor passes that on to you, is that upon their passing? What's that? How does that work?
Boy, I love that question. I have a science background, so my training takes me to give me the science, right? But I also have I'm also a yogi, and I have this very deep spiritual connection, and I know that science can only talk about what it can observe, measure, and describe. But we live in the all that is, not just the part that science can comment on, right? So your question is encompassed in the all that is, right? The science part of that is that behavior was learned. My mom picked that up from her father. I'm not sure where he picked it up, but there's trauma in the family, and we do know scientifically that trauma is passed from one generation to the next. And I feel like I energetically picked it up from my mom, just energetically. And it's not scientific. It's just kind of the vibe. The vibe was enough to, it kind of became this cloak that I wore, right? And I'm so certain that my mom had no idea, nor did her father, right? They had no idea they were passing this stuff on, or where it came. It was very unconscious. They were unaware. I was just able to get the tools to be able to heal this. They didn't have that.
Right. No, I'm sure not. So tell us a little bit about those tools. What kind of work do you do with people to clear?
So as I said, chronic pain, maybe I didn't say, chronic pain is any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more. Any pain, physical, emotional, spiritual. The brain can't tell the difference. So it sends the same signal, it hurts. So we're all either in chronic pain or in recovery from it if we've had a grief experience, for instance, right? Because that lasts a while. And and doctors are generally not taught about in medical school about chronic pain, what it is and how to treat it. So hopefully more now, since the opiates are not really available, they're not really using opiates, so they've got to come up with another answer. But my doctor, Dr. Peter Prescott, who's no longer with us, but wrote this book, Conquer Chronic Pain, an Innovative Mind-Body Approach, was the one that understood the nature of the changes that happen in the brain. And so he offered in his pain management program at the time, he offered these tools. Ancestral Clearing was one of them. He had John Newton of Health Beyond Belief come in as a practitioner and do the ancestral clearing, which is how I got involved with it. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then that was us. And we did what you would call a cognitive behavioral therapy around adversity. He had, Dr. Peter was a Qigong healer. So he brought this energetic, he was also taught us Qigong. We did meditation. There was a lot of, he taught us really just how to breathe because we were all so anxious. You can imagine being wound up like that for so many years. Like, how do you even calm a nervous system like that, right?
Yes, can imagine.
So, and he has a whole list. I give this out when I have a book that I wrote about it, The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. And there's a list of 12 steps of wellness that Dr. Peter taught us. And can I read them to you?
Yes,
just
please.
A couple of steps.
Yes,
so
please.
This is the backbone of his program, which I now teach. 1, none of us were born to suffer. 2, we all have the ability to heal. 3, love with all your heart. 4, get real about your healing. 4, commit to your healing. Sorry, that was 5, commit to your healing. 6, do the work it takes to heal. 7, do the work every day. 8, get real about your healing, in case you didn't hear us the first time. 9, never let anyone or anything get in the way of your healing. 10, love yourself fiercely and without reservation. 11, accept what is. 12, be grateful for all that comes your way and more will be revealed. And that's the program in a nutshell.
Wow. That's incredibly powerful. I mean, you're covering all of it there. You're talking about, I mean, I like how when you first opened up, it was about love. You can't heal without love in your life, right? And then that whole piece in the middle, which really was, in a repetitive way, just get on it. This is about you and you deserve it, so get on it. And then back again, like it's, yeah, awesome. So that is the program that you teach now.
It is. Yeah. I teach his book along with mine. His book was a researcher, doctor. So his is kind of in that language, but I was actually the one that suffered with chronic pain. So this is like the patient manual to his, it's like they go together. Yeah.
Wow.
So, anyway.
Wow. I have to tell you, one of the and I remember this when you and I met a few weeks ago, one of the best parts of talking to you is that you get fired up by this stuff. This is exciting. This is good. This, I see the grin on your face. And, as an individual, I mean, I don't suffer from chronic pain, thankfully, but I like that. I like to see that in a practitioner. If someone is really, excited about their process and they can express that and be clear about it, to me, that's extremely powerful. So way to go.
Thank you. I'm going to follow that up with this comment. I was talking with a business person a couple of weeks ago, and he asked me a bunch of questions about my business. And one question he said was, why do you do the work? And, or what's in it for you, or something like that. And I'm going to give my answer because I believe it's probably your why as well. The that comes when the client finally has a shift from, being stuck in their pattern into, moving into this space of ease and peace. That's why I'm in the work. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yes, I get it. And yes, same on this side. Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very powerful to be supportive of that kind of positioning for an individual, especially when they're suffering. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So tell us some more about the process specific to somebody, because a lot, there are different pieces in there. And I know even with my own clients, I do a section of my model is based on kicking your own ass. So, which is really just about taking responsibility for your experiences, which is part of your program too.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's fundamental. Yeah. So the first thing that I do, I'm careful about it though, as about time, but I make sure that the new client can tell their story. And I give them about 5 minutes, no longer, because we get identified with especially in chronic pain, we get identified with our story. And part of my work is can we disidentify? It's not who I am, it's what I'm experiencing, but it's not who I am, right? So I hear their story, but for a while, right? Second thing I do is ancestral clearing, because some of that stuff that they're feeling is ancestral, as I spoke to a little bit earlier, and the ancestral clearing process helps to relieve some of that weight. And the next thing I do is ask them if they can sit still. And it's amazing to me. That's a fundamental question, because it's required for the next thing, which I'll get to. The reason why it's important, a lot of us aren't comfortable with sitting still for a couple reasons. One, a lot of us heard, sit down, be quiet, as kids, right? So we've got that stuck in the nervous system. Another one is just from trauma. Part of what we do is we'll freeze to stay safe, right? It makes me invisible, right? It's just hardwired in the system. So if that's still in the system, you're going to have trouble sitting still. So that's kind of the next piece that I work on. And then once the client can actually sit still with ease, which sometimes we need a little movement, whatever, there's a way to get them there. Then we bring in meditation, because meditation gives the brain, as I said, chronic pain changes the brain. So you need to be able to heal the changes that are happening in the brain. Meditation is the fastest one for that. It's the most significant modality to heal those changes.
So I'm sure this isn't certainly not new for you, and I understand a little bit of it, but will you explain some of the science around that?
Well, there's
sorry.
a lot of
Was that a really big one?
There's a lot of science that's been on.
Cole's notes.
Yeah, there's a lot of training that's been done on that. I could go in so many different directions. It changes the brain wave. When we're actually in meditation, it changes the brain wave, and that's a very healing space. So I'll say it kind of that way. And the other way I'll say it is this. The past has already happened, so we can't heal there. The future hasn't happened, so we can't heal there. Healing happens in the present moment.
Right.
In meditation, we learn how to be fully present, and with the work that I do, and probably what you do too, we embody ourselves rather than, I don't even want to be here. We learn how to be in the body with some ease, right? That right there is hugely healing. Just presence and without judgment. So what's happening is a lot of the healing is blocked. One of the reasons that I was in chronic pain for so long was because I was judging my experience as bad. So every time I had a big story around my pain. It hurts. What's wrong with me? It just got worse and worse. It's probably what happens in chronic pain. When we go into meditation as a modality, we learn, and yoga, which is why I bring yoga in, we're in the present moment and we release the story. That's the practice. Just release the story. And then the mind is out of the way. The body knows exactly what to do with all that energy to clear it, but the mind will lock it in with its, attitude, right? And I've got it. My default is to have an attitude. So I have to stay conscious. My default is to do all this other stuff. And anyway, so I take the other thing I do is I've had a lot of training around the vagus nerve, trauma training, trauma informed yoga is what I teach. And so we do a lot of work to help the nervous system regulate again, reset the stress response, which is way out of balance in chronic pain.
Wow, good. Okay. I mean, you hear all the time that meditation is such a positive thing to be doing to support us in so many ways. So yeah, I was just curious about
there's another thing that everybody in the audience will relate to in chronic pain and chronic stress, right? Which everybody's under chronic stress right now. The mind tends to be more negative. So where you're going to get inner chatter, I can't do this, I can't do that, more complaining, what's wrong with me, I'm not enough, lots of negative, self-negative stuff, and or blaming one way or the other, outward or inward or both. And meditation helps to clear that. I was amazed, and I wish I knew the mechanism that's happening in the brain to that, because I've watched that happen in me. I'm like, please explain to me how this is happening. And I can't, because the mechanism hasn't been studied and all that fine-tuned, but it happens. And I'm not the only one. I hang out with a lot of people in this world, and we're all experiencing this. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. Oh, awesome. So your book. So, and you have more than one book, right?
Well, I've been on a bunch of collaborative projects. I have a book that's a 90-day journal for those that are. It's just a beautiful 8x11 book called Paths to Inner Peace, which you can journal in every day. It's 8.5 by 11, so you can put in a leaf, or you can put a flower in, or whatever. You can journal each day. It's a beautiful. It's a gorgeous book. That I had a friend of mine helped design. And then this one, The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. Like I said, it's the user's manual to Dr. Peter Prescott's book, Conquer Chronic Pain. I helped him write the exercises in the back of this book because I'd done it. And I was a writer, so I helped him with those. But these two books together are it's not the only beautiful chronic pain work out there, but these are very effective. And the cycle of suffering, I think it would be the one thing I'd want to include in our interview today, what that is, because people will identify with it. And the only way that I even knew what it was I found myself doing it. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've just located the cycle of suffering, which is what I call it. So imagine, I will imagine that you're in a chronic pain experience, and I'm going to describe to you what we do when that happens. We feel disconnected because we can't share that with anyone else. We can tell people about it, but we can't share that experience. So we feel disconnected from others. We may feel disconnected to ourselves because we're not who we used to be. So that's another way. And then the other one is we may feel disconnected from higher power, from whatever we call our higher power. Maybe we feel like, oh, I'm being judged, or I'm blamed, or I did something wrong, or what's wrong with, that kind of, so we get disconnected. So that's 3 different ways we disconnect, right? So one is disconnection. Then we're completely isolated in our disconnection. We become isolated. This is not good for a human because we thrive on connection, right? That's a need, right? Then we judge our experience, and we judge it as bad. Right? This is horrible, right?
Yeah.
Then we get in relationship with it. we're now in relationship. We get attached. We're in relationship with this thing that we're judging, experiencing.
Tell me a
Then,
little more about that.
well,
Being in relationship.
yeah, we're in relationship with it because it's got our attention, right? Chronic pain steals our attention away from everything but it. So you better believe we're in relationship with it, right? Yeah. And so we've got this attachment to it. And, you know, the fight is like, how do I, you know, I don't want to be here. So there's this, right? There's this whole, then we try and control it and we can't.
Right.
And then we get a resentment. We get angry. And then we get more disconnected because we can't share that either.
Yeah.
Right. And the whole cycle starts all over again. Disconnection, isolation, judgment, attachment, control, anger, right? And it's this downward negative spiral. And I know about it because I saw myself doing it. I was like, oh my God. Now, the good news is that's what we do. That's what happens.
Right.
The good news is you can come up out of that. There's an upward spiral too. And that's what I teach. But we do, this is what we do.
Right. Yeah. So at what point did you find yourself there?
Actually, I found myself there after I got out of Dr. Peter Prescott's program, and I was home, and I woke up one morning and I was, I cleared all my chronic pain in his program. I walked in with 59 years of pain, and 52 days later, I walked out with no pain. Who does that? I mean, and I wasn't the only one. He had thousands of people, right? Yeah. So anyway, so I woke up one morning, I've got this thing in my neck, and it was intense. And I saw myself do all this. And I was like in like a hair, you know, in about a minute, I saw myself go through all those stages, and I was like, holy cow, look at that. I've just locked that pain in. Every time you take one more step in that spiral, you lock that pain in tighter and deeper and more intensely. Yeah. Yeah. So you see, unlocking that pain is possible. We just have to kind of work in the other direction. And you can see how the brain, which is constantly adapting to the circumstances that it's presented with, it's constantly looking for homeostasis. How do I adapt and for survival? The brain's constantly changed by these experiences as well.
Negatively.
Yeah. But we can positively change it too.
Right. You have to change it back when they're working with you.
Well, they do the work. I just guide. Guide them. They do the work.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? I think that's such important work to be doing. You know, people, you're right. You know, when you were talking about those points from your, you know, from on your card, you know, you don't have to live with pain. You don't, no one does. Yeah.
Well, we have a silent epidemic of chronic pain in the world. The National Institutes of Health estimates 25% of North America is in chronic pain across all socioeconomic measures, including kids, right? Wow. And Dr. Peter worked with a lot of kids, which was really amazing. And then the World Health Organization estimates a fifth of the world is in chronic pain. So this is really a silent epidemic, and we're not talking about it as much. And that's part of the reason that I do what I do. It's because I feel like, well, underneath all of it is trauma, of course, unresolved trauma. But yeah, we need an army.
Yeah.
People are suffering, right? And we want to help people heal, you know.
Yeah. But as you said, though, it's that silence that keeps people, I think, away from looking for the help that you offer. You know, yeah, which is sad. But yeah, I mean, I think that with numbers like that, yeah, we need an army. Absolutely. Yeah. Or maybe two. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it is. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. So, and you know what, that piece just makes me think about the fact that educating people around those numbers
Mm.
is part of this process. You know, I mean, if someone gets healed, it's one thing, you know, when I think of some of the traditional things that happen, you know, in you know, traditional medicine, okay, well, this hurts, so I'm going to go and I'm going to get a prescription for it. I'm going to get a pill for it, and then it will be fine. You know, so when you look at the work that you're doing, it's so much deeper and has such a different impact on, as you say, you know, the brain, the body, you know, the spirit, all of us.
Mm.
That, you know, I think there is a real place for education around just that little bit. You know, you don't have to suffer.
Mm.
Well, that just is really kind of jumping out at me as being super important.
Yes, I will say there's some confusion in the Western world about chronic pain because of the approach that they take. Again, remember, science can only comment about that which it can observe, measure, and describe. So doctors can only talk about that piece because that's their perspective, right? But we live in the all that is from the yogic perspective and the Ayurvedic perspective and the traditional Chinese medicine perspective. You can't separate mind, body, and spirit. But Western medicine has this reductionist view. So, so I'll give you an example of why chronic pain to them is such an enigma. So I had these crazy looking x-rays. Doctors, when they look at it, they go like, here are your opiates and